I actually almost know nothing about this. I know that he comes from
Well,
Superman's universe, right? And he's
he comes from DC Comics, but so obviously Shazam. Shazam used to be like from a different comic, and then DC or Action Comics at the time, they sued the comic. I think there was Wiz Comics or something. They sued them because of like likeness. Like they said, you're basically copying Superman, so we're suing you. And so they ended up with the rights to Shazam. But at the time, he wasn't called Shazam. He was called Captain Marvel, and the comic book line was called Captain Marvel. And then obviously Marvel got involved with the argument because they're like, well, our name is Marvel. You can't have a character called Captain Marvel. So then like they had to change it to Shazam. And then Marvel had the rights to call someone Captain Marvel. It's comic book like politics is really fucking odd. Like I'm really interested in it though. There's been a few times that I've heard like the odd story here and there where I'm like, oh, I'm really interested to learn why things got so ugly at Marvel or at DC when they were trying to develop this whatever it was, like the like Hobgoblin in Spider-Man. There was this whole sort of inward in like boardroom politics and writers room politics that really affected the story, and they were building up to something that fans were really excited for, and it just sort of went out like a wet fart because no one could get on with each other. It was really, I think I watched a YouTube video about it and I found it really interesting. But yeah, comic book politics is really worth having a look at for an episode, I reckon. It's really obscure, some of the shit that you find. So yeah, that's your background of Captain Marvel and Shazam. And Black Adam is the bad guy he's like the Venom to Captain Marvel's or Shazam's Spider-Man. He's like the sort of complete opposite. You know how you get it? So often in these superhero movies, the bad guy is just going to be the good guy, but a bit stronger. It's always the way. It's exactly the same power set, just a little bit more. Iron Man did it, Spider-Man and Venom, fucking Thor and Loki. Pick one. Pick any one of these superhero films. They've fought a version of themselves that's just more powerful before. Every fucking time.
And this film is going to be solely about this character, or
it looks like they're going to turn him into like an anti-hero. Like he's like sort of a reluctant hero. He's just really out for himself, but obviously he's so powerful he can just save the world if he wants to, if he can be asked. Which could be interesting. Could be interesting to have a hero that's so uninterested in saving people that they just do it because like they're like, fine then. You stop nagging me, I'll do it. Sort of like Hancock, but Hancock was an alcoholic, which was interesting. I don't think they're going to do that, but it would be interesting to see someone who's just morally not bothered about saving you. That might be really interesting.
Yeah.
Like you might say we've seen it with The Boys, but excuse me. I would say more like Dr. Manhattan. You know how sort of emotionless he is, like sort of like meh he is about saving the world and shit. Like he's just like, I suppose I will then. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so I suppose you had it with Dr. Manhattan, but I think that's where they're going with it. An anti-hero, but probably not quite a Clint Eastwoody anti-hero, which would be better.
It's going to be a rock anti-hero. It makes me think, the first thing I think of is, was it Welcome to the Jungle? One of his first films way back in the 2000s.
That's the English title. The American title is The Rundown.
Oh, is it? I had no idea about that.
Well, I only found out because I have American friends, and I was like, oh, have you seen Welcome to the Jungle? They're like, no. I'm like, oh, it's got The Rock, and it's got Stifler, and it's got Christopher Walken. And they're like, oh, that's called The Rundown. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's Welcome to the Jungle. And they're like, no, it's called Rundown. So yeah, it's the UK title.
Ah. Do you remember
Yeah.
that guy who used to be that Stifler actor?
Sean William
something.
Scott. Yeah, Sean
Yeah.
William Scott.
I never.
I said for years that he should play Deadpool. I still think he'd be a great Deadpool.
Actually, that's not a bad call, actually. I remember
Yeah.
in so many films, he was always doing some weird caca shit or something like.
That's evolution.
But he also does that in something else. I think it might be The Rundown or Welcome to the Jungle, whatever it's called.
Oh, yeah. I think you're right. I think he does. Yeah, I can see him. And then he's like, thunder, lightning.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe, yeah, he could have done a good Deadpool.
I think he would have been great. Have you seen Role Models?
I think I remember it, but
It's with him and Paul Rudd.
I think I saw a bit of it. That was like what, around 10 years ago that came out, right?
At least. maybe 15. But yeah. It was a while back. Maybe 2008. Maybe. But
yeah.
I actually really liked that. I used to watch it with my dad all the time. It was a right laugh. And he's good in it. Paul Rudd's good in it. And the kids are good in it.
You don't see much of Sean William Scott anymore, do you? I think he's
I don't know why, because I always really liked him. But I suppose he's just gotten typecast as Stifler for the rest of his career. He is in an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I love that episode.
I have to check that.
He's Country Mac. He's City Mac's cousin from the country, and he's saying to the gang, he's like, "Oh, you're gonna love Country Mac. You're gonna love him." And then he shows up, and they were like, "Oh, for fuck's sake, we've just got another one. They're so similar." But then the more they hang out with him, the more they're like, "Oh, he is exactly the same, but he's not an asshole." So like, he's exactly the same, but there's nothing about him that's irritating us. We actually like him, and it's just the fact that we've got him around now makes us like our original one even less, because it's like, this is what we've been missing out on if he was just a better version of himself. It's quite funny.
Shrug.